Hey everybody, my name's Cayton Holland. I'm here with Noah Van Sciver. Say hi, Noah.
Hello. Hi.
And we're going to be discussing Noah's new book. Please don't step on my Jnco jeans. I'm gonna read your bio and watch your face to see how arrogant you are about it or how humble. So everyone watch Noah as I read his credentials. Um, Noah Van Sciver is an award-winning cartoonist who first came to readers' attention with his Eisner-nominated comic book series Blammo. His work has appeared in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Best American Comics, and Mad Magazine, and he has written and drawn numerous best-selling graphic novels, including One Dirty Tree, Saint Cole, and the Fante Bukowski series for Fantagraphics. His most recent release is this book, a collection of newspaper strips and gag comics, Please Don't Step on My Jnco Jeans, which I just got and read and loved. And so I'm so excited to chat with you about it, Noah. And for those of you who don't have this book, you can get it from the retail partner for tonight's event, Floating World Comics in Portland, Oregon. And that includes a free signed book plate from Noah. Yeah. Okay, so I got the bookkeeping out of the way. And yeah, man, how's it going?
It's good. It's good.
Perfect. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Buy the book, and yeah, I think we're done. Record time. Let's softball you. How did you decide what to wear for this? Like, how much went into your thought process about outfit for the evening?
Not a lot, actually. I just I basically wear the same thing every time. I mean, as soon as the weather gets to about 70 degrees, I put a sweater on.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're getting there down here.
Got it. True to life. I was thinking with interviews that I do, I always go right to me because that's the type of interviewer I am.
Please. Yes.
So I was trying to think about how I know you and became familiar with your work, and it was because we both wrote for the alternative weekly in Denver called The Westward back in the day. And I bring that up because you had a weekly comic strip in that paper, and you draw a lot of strips about the pressure of having weekly comic strips and that sort of making you tear your hair out. And I read in the Facebook description, you kind of described that as your personal survival mechanism. So what is that like for you, having a weekly deadline? And do you still have weekly deadlines? And
well, I grew to like it with Westward. Like I really started to enjoy it, but it was easier at Westward because the comic strip there was just like find a different band and interview them and then draw it. So
right, it was just like 4 panels about the band, right? Like
yeah. And it was, Denver was sort of a small scene back then. So, it was basically talking to the same 100 people because they'd break up and then form a different band, and I just do it. So I was able to sustain that for 7 years. I think I did that strip.
Wow.
And yeah, but that put me on the weird schedule because the pay wasn't very good, but it was like this schedule that like I was learning in public how to be a cartoonist with that strip. Because if you look at the very first one, the drawing was like really bad, and then by the end of it, I've sort of almost arrived at where I am now. So it was really helpful to just have that schedule and have something that had to be done every week. And I still, when I moved to Columbus, Ohio, the newspaper there, Columbus Alive, offered me a strip there, but this time they were just like, just do whatever you want.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, and that's like, I was like, oh my God, thank God I can just do whatever I want. That's great. But then it became really hard because then every week I'm like trying to figure out what happened that week that was funny, or maybe I can like go back to childhood and think of something horrible from back then.
Yeah, it's like too many options kind of get in the way of creativity.
Yeah, so I still do it. But I just do it on my Patreon now.
Okay.
Every week I put up a new comic.
You write a lot about that early fear of wanting to become an artist and sort of the insecurity of like, am I a cartoonist? Did it vindicate you at all having a weekly strip, even if you were learning in the public's eyes, where you're kind of like, okay, I'm doing this? Because I feel like a lot of your strips, you really, and that's what I like about it, they're so honest. You're like trying to fight off like, oh, am I fake? Am I just faking this? So did it help you to have this publication every week?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because back then, and I'm sure you remember this, like Denver was the kind of place you could just move there and declare that you were something and people just accepted that. So like I moved to Denver and I just declared like I'm a cartoonist, even though like I had never published anything or anything like that. And people were just like, oh, he's the cartoonist of the town. That's what he does. And so getting like a job at Westward was kind of easy because I was just like, I'm a cartoonist. I want to do something for you. And they let me do the strip, and then everybody just knew that became like my identity.
Uh-huh.
And it was like the best thing about that. And then like I, within like the art scene there in Denver, it was like, oh, that's the cartoonist.
I mean, that's how I met you. It makes perfect sense. Like, yeah, that's Noah. He's the cartoonist guy.
Yeah, and I remember being at like St. Mark's and seeing you and a bunch of other comedians. This was like in 2006 or 7, and you guys were all like working on something at a table, and I knew who you guys were because I'd seen you at maybe the Squire or is it Squire? Is that what
Squire? Yeah, that was the
bar. So I knew who you guys were, and I was there working on like the first issue of Blammo, and I remember being like, oh, I should go talk to them, but I didn't do it. But I always think back like we were both in the same scene, like working on the early stages of whatever we're doing now,
Yeah, both making our terrible early efforts.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, a lot of these comics, I was looking at the dates of them, they're all from like 2017 to 2019 in this book.
Yeah.
What were they for? Where did these appear? Like why are these all in the same collection? What does that period represent?
Well, I moved to Columbus, Ohio in 2016, and I think I got the strip around 2017. So it's just a selection of that. I think I worked there for 2 years maybe. And it's just like my favorite ones from those 2-year periods.
Okay. Even the individual panels, which are just like a single drawing?
Oh, no, that was just like stuff that I was doing. Like the Noah as like a Universal Monsters drawings.
Yeah.
Those were just like Facebook drawings. That's all.
I kind of like, I mean, it feels to me a lot like a journal entry or something. It's kind of like, here's my offering of the day. Or I guess that's why, weekly column. Are you someone that has to create every day? Like if you weren't having to turn in this column, would you just be drawing this stuff because that's the only way you can operate?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I draw a page or two, like even behind me, like I've got a stack of work that I'm working on right now. Like I did this, like every day I'm drawing something that's like a part of my schedule. It's like it keeps me like regular in my head almost, like if my wife is like, we're going away to Spartanburg this weekend or whatever, like where her parents live, a little part of my brain panics because I'm like, yeah, but I want to do something. I want to draw. What am I going to do there? I'm just going to sit around like that, So it is sort of a like addiction or some kind of a release, or I don't really know how to sum it up, but yeah, it's something I have to do every day.
I understand.
I've trained myself to do it every day.
Are you very meticulous about it? Does it have to, like, could you go and bring a pad and draw in Spartanburg effectively? Or it's like, no, you need your sort of routine.
Yeah, I can't set up a drawing space at somebody else's house when I'm supposed to be socializing with them, because then I feel like I'm trying to get attention or something. Like, oh, look at the artist over there.
Fair enough. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't want to make you think about the vast totality of your work, but we're going to do that. You draw much larger scale things, Fante Bukowski, and I know you're doing like a history of the Grateful Dead and Mormonism and Joseph Smith, like these epic, really committing to these lengths of time doing these things. How is that different from doing these, and do these provide a necessary release from that?
Yeah, definitely. They are really, you know what it is? It's like a different artistic muscle. I could never be satisfied just doing like a humor strip. I have to also make sure that I'm flexing like a fiction muscle, and I need to make sure that I am working on nonfiction. I need to make sure that I'm doing all sorts of things. I can't just do one thing and like focus on that, because I get bored with it maybe or something. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, but I want to try telling this, and I'm reading all these great books that my contemporaries are doing or like my heroes have done, and I'm just like, I want to do something like that next. So I just have to dive around and just do whatever I feel like doing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't just stick on one, you get bored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With you were talking about fiction and nonfiction, and I have some good friends who read a lot of graphic novels, and I was asked them for some questions, and one that they wanted to ask exactly about that is kind of, how do you separate real autobiography stuff that you're going to use about yourself from stuff that feels real. And I'm thinking specifically like Fante Bukowski. Like I feel like a lot of that was probably drawn from your experience struggling and going to try to get your work out there, and just the world feels like you've inhabited it a little bit. Do you sort of save bits and pieces, or is it not that thought out, you know?
I don't really think it out that deeply, but it is true. Like all the humiliating stuff did go into Fonte Bukowski.
I mean, it feels like it. It feels very much like this guy's lived some version of this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Got it. So you just kind of whatever fits the different template you're throwing it in.
Yeah, well, I could exaggerate it more in fiction, you know, like maybe if I did it as it actually happened, it wouldn't be as funny as you can just really like kind of beef it up for Fonte.
Got it. Well, it was speaking of did it actually happen or not, in this, please don't step on my Jnco jeans, there's that one strip where you're trying to talk to the guy about your artwork on the wall, and then he's like later the librarian. Is that true?
Oh. No, it's not true.
Okay, all right. So then you can allow a little bit of exaggeration.
But I would be like that though. Like if I had some of my comic art in that museum, the Billy Ireland in Columbus, I would probably just kind of stick around that gallery and hang out and just listen in on what people were saying about my work.
Sure.
I think I would probably do that. Yeah.
I do. I understand that. What I'll do is if I'm in a bookstore and I see my book, I just take it and I move it to this bookstore recommends this book. And I just put it there, and then I'll sit and watch and see if anybody picks it up and see if they buy it. That's some fun I allow myself.
Do you do that thing where you like go and you see your book and then you face it cover out on the shelf?
100%. Tattered cover at Denver International Airport was carrying it, the little kiosk in the airport. So I'd always go there and try to get it like front row center and try to get it out all over the world, different airplanes.
Yeah, for sure.
The reason I said that a lot of this feels kind of like journal entries, not just the comic strips, but also the individual panels, is it's very, you don't pull any punches. You just let people write into what's going on with you. And there's a couple in here that I thought just spoke to me. One in particular, well, two in particular. The one was, it's like the day when depression lifts or something like that. And it's just your kind of ransacked apartment with open booze bottles and record player just filthy. And you're kind of like looking at the chaos your depression has wrought in that panel. I thought that's just beautifully executed. And there's several others that deal with depression, you know, you clinging on the edge of a cliff. And like, do you find that's a theme that comes out more and more? And do you feel comfortable discussing it, or you know, in your work?
Yeah, I feel comfortable. I feel like I've done maybe too much of it or something. I have to try and steer myself away from that and try and focus on making work that is maybe a little bit brighter. Or see that's the whole exercise, right? Like if you can take your depression and make it funny, that's that's really valuable. Like to put that out in the world, maybe.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the one that's valuable, I shared it on Instagram, there's one where you're on the internet and it's all doom and gloom and skull and crossbones, and then you close the laptop and it's less and less, and you open a book and it goes away. Oh, yeah. That's just a beautiful 4-panel, like, this is how life should be lived. And I feel like that's kind of what you're talking about. Just like, here's my actual depression, but into a sort of life lesson in a humorous way.
Yeah, right. Well, I have to get off the computer and actually just read a book or something, and I can like detoxify my brain, because there's so much crap just being spewed at me all the time, and I just need to, like, I can feel my blood pressure rising. I just need to like just go and just like sit on the couch and like look at something that's not glowing and, you know,
screen time
shouting at me or something, you know.
I mean, my wife and I had to stop watching CNN because it's just rage-inducing, and we're all glued to the end of the world going on right now.
Yeah.
But you're just like, you know what? I actually can trace my mental health feeling better if I turn this off.
You know what was really depressing about that page in particular was I drew that comic, and for most of those comics for the newspaper, shamefully, you know, I would draw them for the week and then I would just toss out the drawing because I was like, what am I going to keep these for?
Oh, right.
So then somebody, the president of IDW, which is like a really big comics publisher, wrote to me and was like, I'd like to purchase that comic or whatever, do you still have a copy of it? And I was like, oh, I think maybe, I don't know. And I was like digging around, like, oh, please, like I need the money.
Sure. Yeah.
And I could not find it. And like, I had just thrown it away. It was like nothing to me. And then now I'm just like, God damn it.
Would you
now
ever redraw it and just be like, yeah, here it is?
Yeah, I just trace it and yeah, horrible.
Well, that's another theme though, is the tech and the sort of terrible effect that tech and social media has on our brains. And I couldn't agree more with you. Mm-hmm. And I'm like raising a kiddo and I'm already like, don't look at the TV. But
yeah.
How do you deal with that as your career? Like, I know you have a YouTube channel. I'm like you, we got to promote our crap online. It's mm-hmm. sort of a necessary evil of being an artist these days. How do you view it?
I just try to do it like in the morning. That's when I do most of my internet stuff. Because I sit down and I have to color. Like, so part of my morning routine is that I'll get up, I'll make coffee, maybe have like a bagel or something, and then I will sit in front of my computer and work on coloring a page. Because if I can get a page colored and a page drawn every day, like I don't feel like I wasted my day.
Sure.
I feel productive. And so while my Photoshop is open, I'll have like another screen and I can check social medias and see what's going on. I can try and work on a video and upload that to my channel and stuff. And I just try to take care of that stuff in the morning. And then, maybe like in the middle of the day or whatever, I'll check stuff, see what's going on as I'm drawing. And then usually when my wife comes home, I just try and leave my computer and then go watch a movie or something,
Have you ever done a social media cleanse? Just get rid of it for a week or so?
Yeah, I've done that a few times. I did it a lot, like in 2016, like during that election, I was just like, I can't do it. And so I did a lot of like, I'm just going to get rid of my Facebook for a while, but then people start coming up with theories about why you abandoned your, so it's not good. You can't really do that.
Yeah. You better emerge with some grand opus rather than just be like, I actually feel good.
Yeah.
Is your cat series kind of a reaction to all the nonsense going on online, or just the stupidity of the, clickbait shit?
I wish. That was just that's another shameful thing is like I did this residency in France where they had like a bunch of cartoonists working together from all over the world. And one of the exercises we were supposed to invent a character together that we could then use in a comic that we all worked on together. We like spent a week making a graphic novel together, and we were working up characters and somebody invented that cat. And then somebody else added to it. Like it was like kind of a thing that everybody kind of built up. And then I drew it and I really loved drawing it. So I just took it. Like I took it. I didn't invent that character. And then I started
to take it.
I figured that it was just kind of up for grabs. Everybody was using it and stuff.
I don't know about these socialist cartoonist retreats, dude. I just can't get on board.
Yeah. So I feel bad about that. I don't know if that was ethical, but
I'm giving you shit.
Yeah, I didn't invent that.
What is it like drawing yourself all the time? And have you seen an evolution in the drawing, and do you like it better in certain times? Because I just can't even imagine, like I go on stage and tell jokes and give a side of myself, but you have to physically draw yourself every time. What is that like?
Well, I haven't learned how to do it yet. Like I haven't, it's always different. Like I haven't I haven't been able to like figure it out to like the guy who draws Garfield, where it's just like Garfield is like the same rubber stamp image every time or whatever. So it's always different. And I get really frustrated about that because as I'm still doing the strip for my Patreon, it comes like at the end of the week after I've done pages for the graphic novel that I'm working on. So by the time I get to my goofy strip, I'm so used to drawing the characters from the book that I then basically have to relearn how to draw myself as that character again. And sometimes I'll give myself like too big of a nose or it's like I start to look more and more like the Joseph Smith character that I've been drawing all the rest of the week.
Right.
So it has its own frustrations. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. It's not the like simple Homer Simpson sketch. It's more actually drawing it every time.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. This is a question I've had for you for a long time, and I think it's kind of why I'm always drawn to your work. And let me try to phrase it well. I wrote it out, but a lot of what I've responded to in your work, it seems to mine these really mundane moments over the course of your life or the character's life that upon committing them to this length, graphic novel length, or even a strip sometimes, you really draw out like the profundity of that experience. And it could be as simple as getting a first apartment alone as an adult, or first shitty jobs, or in this one, I feel like it really is that story about being your final trick-or-treating, where you're kind of like too old to be trick-or-treating, but you're gonna do it anyway, and your friends are giving you shit, and there's a Jnco jeans cameo in that strip. But those are like these moments that ultimately, if you were to tell someone what happens in that story, you'd be like, oh, not a lot. But then reading it in graphic novel length, it's really kind of profound and almost epic. And I guess when do you know that something's risen to that level that you're like, I'm going to commit a lot of time to this and actually draw this out? Like, what bell goes off in your head that you're like, this would be perfect for that? Or does one?
Yeah, it does. You know, it's like things bubble up to the surface in my brain a lot from like just different things and like different parts of my life. And for some reason, it's always the things that are mundane, but they're like universal. So it's always something like that, like the last time you go trick-or-treating, like everybody remembers that, right? It's like the last year you get to do that, and it's always like your friends are too cool for it, but you're still trying to like hang on to that like last piece of childhood or something.
Yeah, loss of innocence, I guess.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just like something that, and sometimes it's like it'll bubble up to the surface, and then you think about it, and then you just kind of put it away, but then it's still there. And somebody said this thing that I always think about. It's like when you draw a memory, you kind of excise it from your brain so that you don't remember the actual event happening anymore as much as you remember the comic that you did about it. And that's been true for me. Like I did this book called One Dirty Tree about my childhood, and a lot of the memories, if I read that book now, I probably wouldn't even really remember the events that I was talking about anymore. I'd be like, oh, that, like, it'd be so vague. So I think I kind of got rid of it. Like I emptied it out of my head by recording it. And
that makes a lot of sense to me. I've done some stuff like that myself, and it does. I don't know if there's a power in that. It's like I'm controlling the narrative through my art, or also, but it's also kind of sad because you're like, that memory's gone. I now will only remember it this way, which inevitably is your, tainted perspective. But I guess that's all we can do as artists.
Yeah. Well, did you find that therapeutic when you wrote your book?
I mean, yeah, definitely therapeutic. I processed a lot of feelings about death and loss in my book, but I certainly, if I now recount certain things from that story, I will find myself using kind of what I wrote as a shorthand for it. And so I can really understand where you're coming from, because it's kind of like, it's almost like you organized your thoughts on it in one way, my book or one of your comic strips. And now sort of in the retelling, just casually amongst friends, it kind of just becomes that.
Yeah. You retell it the way that you had written it in your book.
Sort of.
It's like the audiobook, the live audiobook version.
Yeah, but it's weird because I don't know if that's like powerful, like reclaiming the memory the way you want it, or sort of manipulative, or both, Interesting.
Yeah, there's probably studies on that.
Yeah, for sure. That's for the psychologists. And let me see. I got a few more questions here for you, and then we'll turn it over to everybody tuning in and see if they got some questions. But what is your, like, if you got a vision board and it's your dream project, and I want somebody to approach me to do this, is there something that's like your white whale you'd like to do, or do you just draw it and do it?
I got to be honest, the Joseph Smith book that I've been working on for the past few years is my white whale. That's like the book that I've wanted to do probably since I started cartooning. I know I have failed attempts at it going back to probably 2007, because I just always wanted to know the history of that church.
Did you grow up around Mormonism?
I grew up Mormon.
Okay.
But I didn't really know the full story of the origin. And I always wanted to, but through my art, I need to like I can learn something better if I'm drawing it. Like if I'm just reading a book about Joseph Smith, it doesn't stick in my head the same way that it does if I like inhabit that story through my art. So drawing it and stuff, and actually, I feel like I'm living in that time. Like I feel like I'm living in these shoes because I have to go, oh, and then Joseph Smith did this, but then it doesn't make sense through this time period that we're in. So I have to go take a walk and really think about it. And so I'm kind of like emotionally connecting myself to this person and trying to figure out like what his motives would be, why somebody would act this way. It's really immersive. And so doing that book is very special to me. And that's like the biggest thing I wanted to do. But when that's over, I really just want to get back to writing fiction. Like I want to do more stuff like St. Cole, because that's the most satisfying kind of graphic novel to work on, most satisfying kind of comic to do for me personally. So, and that's a muscle that I want to get back into flexing, because I haven't done a book like that in a long time, and I got to get back into it,
Yeah, for sure. Is that Joseph Smith book just kind of when it's done? Like you'll just keep working on it until or I don't know. I don't mean to spill any industry secrets.
Oh,
or anything.
No. Well, it's supposed to be done in February, so
okay.
I have like 2 months to finish it, and
What are you doing talking to us, dude? Get to it.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy how much I've had to work really hard.
That's great. That's like a big thing coming to a close. That's very exciting.
Yeah. Who knows? I might be really depressed after.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. But completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Do people ask you to draw them all the time? Are people like constantly giving you ideas? People always to me like, hey man, tell me a joke. What's the cartoonist equivalent of that?
Yeah, I get a lot of requests to draw their pets.
Yeah.
A lot of portrait drawing. The thing is, like, I'm really terrible at capturing likenesses, so I hate it. I can't do it. So I always try and like when I see somebody's message in my inbox and I can kind of read a little sentence of what they wrote to me, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to open that. I can't do it. I'm sorry. I wish I could. I'm not Mort Drucker. Like everybody looks the same. I have like one face I can draw. I'm sorry.
You're like, Christ, man, I got to remember how to draw myself every time.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not drawing your dog, dude.
Well, do you get people recommending jokes to you? Like, hey, you should do something about this.
People often be like, dude, you want to hear something funny? This is gold. And then it's like, this is going to be racist and T-3, 2, 1. Yep. Oh, racist. Yep.
Yeah.
People are always like, you should do a bit on this. And I'm like, no. I mean, I guess that's also very personal. It's like, I don't see your spin, man. I don't know why that would be a good bit.
Right.
But yeah, most of it is just tell me a joke. And that's the worst.
You don't seem very funny.
Yeah. Yep. And then I just get my lunch money taken. So, your moves from Denver to Columbus to Columbia, I'm sure they were just natural, organic things that were happening in your life. Mm-hmm. But you seem to have a very deep relationship with cities. I mean, I guess you draw them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're very savvy about the careers of cartoonists. You're constantly promoting other people's works. And do you think it's important for a cartoonist to have an interesting relationship with their city? Or is it something you seek when you're looking to move places?
I always look for like a small kind of, like if I'm going to be in a city, I want it to be a small, like when I lived in Denver, Denver was it was a cow town, right? That's what everybody called it.
Right.
I mean, it literally smelled like cow crap. I remember it was terrible, but I loved it. So I like that small kind of town, but big enough that there's possibilities there, kind of a place. So
city on the rise.
Yeah. Like Columbus, Ohio was a good place for that. And Columbia is a place like that. Like these are capital cities, but they're not like there's still possibilities there. They're still affordable to live. Things like that. That's what I look for. I could never be like a New Yorker, or God knows I couldn't live in Los Angeles.
Right. No, I like that. It's like kind of left of center cities. It's just like, I think that's more interesting too. Yeah. This is just for Denver fans, but what do you miss about Denver? What are things that you just miss about the place?
Oh God, I miss Denver. I want to be buried in Colorado. I love Colorado so much, but Denver, I mean, easy for me. It's Kilgore Books is what I miss the most there.
Totally.
The greatest.
That place is great.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to answer a few from people tuning in. But like I was saying before, you seem like a champion of cartoons and cartooning, and I really appreciate following you because I learn about artists that I never knew about all the time. So this is grandiose. But when other artists talk about you and your art, what do you hope that they say?
Oh God. What I hope they say. I don't know, just nothing bad. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Nor should you. You don't have to, like, it's weird to talk about your art. It's what you want other people to do. You don't want to do it. You just want to make the art and hope that people talk about it and diagnose it. But yeah, for me, it's just like, we just don't want to be called a hack.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, right.
Did it the right way.
When people say like, "Oh, he's so prolific," I read that as hack. I'm like, how dare you? I'm like working my ass off all the time. Like,
what is that? Why would that be hacky? Because it's like you draw too fast or something?
Yeah, he's just putting out so much stuff. Like I take it as that they think that I'm just like I'm gonna package up something and throw it out there, but it's like not. It's not like that. I just like I just get like really inspired by doing projects, and I frequently work on several projects at the same time, and I mean, it's my life. That's all I do.
I love it. There's only a few questions here, and one is very specific. So, any plans to visit Arizona again, Noah? Post-pandemic, of course.
Yeah, exactly. If I was invited, I would go out there. Like there was like a comic convention in the future. They still have those. I would go out there, but Arizona was rough for me. I had a terrible childhood there. I hated growing up there. So I don't know. Maybe.
Where was it? Arizona, then New Mexico, right?
No, I lived in Mesa, Arizona, and then I moved to Lakewood, Colorado, and then Denver, Colorado. And then, well, it was actually Lakewood, and then Castle Rock, and then Denver. So yeah.
Got it.
The details.
Who are you reading these days? Whose work do you find interesting currently?
Right now, I'm reading a collection of Kaz cartoons. There's a weekly comic strip called Underworld that ran in the alternative weekly papers. So I got that giant collection from Fantagraphics. It's called From Hoboken to Hollywood, and it's really great. And I'm also reading an old book that I got off eBay from the 70s by Mort Walker, and it's called Backstage at the Strips. And it's just basically behind the scenes of being a comic strip artist back then, when that was like a really good job to have. So it's pretty interesting.
That sounds awesome. That's not like drawn, right? It's just a book.
Yeah, it's a book, but he has like a lot of strips. Like he'll be explaining things. It's actually really interesting because he gives really funny like insider jokes and like things like that. So yeah, and then he'll use like a strip to illustrate, what he's talking about, like how, because it's kind of a how-to book as well. So yeah, it's illustrated and stuff. It's great.
Nice. This is a great question. I love this. Hi, Noah. Can you talk about the title and/or your relationship with Jnco jeans?
Well, like I said, I grew up in Mesa, Arizona. Like say 97, 98, it was just all, I was actually just explaining this to my wife in the car earlier this evening, that because she grew up in South Carolina down here. So she was like, nobody had Jnco jeans. Like,
what? I thought that was universal.
Yeah, that's what I was like, I guess it was just kind of more of like a kind of rave culture thing and like skater culture. And I don't know, maybe it was too conservative down here. And so they were all like farm boys and stuff. They didn't wear Jncos. It was kind of a city thing.
Their legs were too thick.
Yeah, yeah. But I was a skater, so that was just like that was the style back then. So yeah, but I never bought any of my own. Like I got Jnco jeans because my friends were so embarrassed of me. I only had one pair of pants as a teenager in Arizona, and my friends got so embarrassed of hanging out with me that one of them gave me a pair of Jnco jeans, and I wore them.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
Somebody asks, and I think we'll do a couple more if you're game.
Sure.
Do you have a favorite strip in this book?
Uh, I do. Well, actually, I have a couple, but my favorite one in here is this one where I'm at a thrift store and I see this old Doc Yak car ornament. It's like an antique, and I don't buy it. And then at night, I'm thinking about it, like agonizing over it, because that happens to me all the time. So yeah, it's this one here. And yeah, it really is like that, where I'm just like, God damn it, why didn't I buy that?
I think everyone knows that feeling.
Yeah.
That's the universality. Like that's kind of what I think might make. I'm trying to draw parallels, but like a great joke is when someone's like, "Oh, I had that thought, but didn't say it," and it's like the guy's saying exactly the thought I had, and I feel like that might be the same universality that you're looking for in a good comic strip. It's like, of course, when you don't buy the thing and regret it for the rest of your life, that makes people can relate to that.
Do you have this thing where other comedians come up to you and say like, "Hey, I wrote a joke just like that. I had something like that."
Really?
Will they say it to you? Where like you're like on stage and you're done, and then somebody's like, "Oh, I really like that joke you did. I used to have something like that."
Occasionally, but if then I'll be like, in my line of work, that's like very serious. So it's like, well, wait a minute, what's the joke? Like, and then I'll hear it and be like, usually it's not. It's on the same thing. It's we both wrote a joke about a cat, but if it's very similar, then I'll tend to be like, then I'm going to bail on that because I don't want to be accused or even have anything that like somebody else is doing,
Would that make your stomach drop when like somebody would come up and say something like that? You'd just be like, "Oh shit, what?"
Not really, because I know that I thought of it organically. I'm not like afraid I got caught with my hand in the jar.
Yeah.
But it definitely is something in my line of work that you're like, at least if you have good comedic morals, you're kind of like, well, if someone else has got a joke out there that's very similar, I don't want to be telling it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I get really nervous about that. Sometimes I'll think of a comic and I'll be like, "Oh, that's so funny. I guarantee somebody's already done that." And so I just won't touch it. Like today we were talking about how like we know that like the New Yorker next month is going to have a cover where it's a family Christmas and all the presents under the tree are wrapped up like the COVID virus. You can already tell that's what everybody's getting for Christmas.
That's funny. Have you ever been published in the New Yorker?
I had a few close calls, but I got so frustrated with it that I just kind of put it aside and worked on my own stuff instead.
Yeah, because I remember you did a cover with like your art on the cover of the New Yorker one time, and I texted you. I was like, "Congrats!" And you're like, "No, I'm just fucking around."
Yeah. That's my favorite prank to play on social media.
One person asked, "Do you find it difficult to arrange a strip anthology because they're standalone as opposed to one narrative? And how did you arrange these, or is it just kind of however?"
Yeah, that was actually a really tricky part of putting that book together. Is I had a file with every strip that I had done there, and first off, I had to take all the ones that I thought were funny enough or weren't drawn too shitty, because sometimes you have a deadline and you don't draw that well or something. So I'd put those into another file, and then I would just kind of arrange them in different ways to see what would read best. And I feel like that the order that I came up with for this was like, okay, this reads kind of smoothly, and because I first was like, maybe I should like organize it so it's all the strips about like childhood will be in one section, and but that doesn't really work as well as just kind of throwing them all together in between each other. Throwing some illustrations between some of them.
Yeah, it's a good little palette cleanser.
Yeah.
One person asked, and I think you kind of spoke about this, but I'd like to hear what your take is. How do you juggle all these projects? Joseph Smith and the mini comics, and do you need to have several things going at once? That's just how you operate?
Yeah, well, like I said, like I have to do a page every day of Joseph Smith because I have a real serious deadline for that. But in the mornings, if I feel like drawing, I have a sketchbook where I have a comic going, and inside the sketchbook that I'll publish as a comic. So I can just kind of I don't know, it just kind of depends on how I'm feeling, or if I really need a break from drawing a graphic novel that I'm working on, I can flip over to something else. In the comic strip, I just know that like every Thursday I've got to draw the new strip. So I keep myself on that schedule,
Cool. Well, I want to ask one last question, which I always enjoy being asked, and I'm curious what your answer is. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and Noah, like congrats on the new book. It's been nice to chat with you.
Yeah.
If you weren't a cartoonist, what would you be?
An electrician.
Do you have those skills?
No, but I always feel like that's a really good trade, and you'd always have a job. You always people are always going to need an electrician, so it's a good job.
Yeah, during the pandemic, my answer has totally changed. Like anything essential and practical that I could do. Yeah. Okay. Electrician. I like it, man. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in. Please don't step on my Jnco jeans. And if you're thinking about getting it, get it from Floating World Comics in Portland, Oregon, and you'll get the free signed book plate. So yeah, thanks, Noah. It's good to see you, man.
Thank you. It's good to see you.